Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. Good morning, good afternoon and good evening from wherever you are in the world. And welcome to this fourth World Tote Association webinar of the year, with lots of you attending from all over the world. So delighted to have you with us and to be part of this event. Before I go into the details, just a few housekeeping points. The session's being recorded and will be available on the World Tote Association website in a couple of days' time. If there's anything you missed or want to listen to again, all of the presentations that we will present today will be emailed to members afterwards, so don't feel that you have to take notes or anything, because you will have access to them if there's anything that you want to look at again. And we will all talk through our presentations. And we will leave time for Q&A at the end of the session. So please put in any questions you have into the Q&A function and I will pick those up. There will also be a Google form afterwards made available if you have any questions that you think of after the event. So I'm delighted as a member of the UK Tote team to be leading this session today, and I'm joined by some excellent people to look at what is a really important topic in terms of pool betting compared to fixed odds betting around the world. It's an incredibly varied landscape that we all operate in. For example, pool betting has dominated the American landscape for decades. But that looks like it's changing state by state. Here in the UK, we've been fixed odds dominated really since the 60s, and pool betting has been a minor player, but we're hoping to change that as the UK Tote Group with our plans for the totes. And in Asia, including markets in Japan and Hong Kong, fixed odds bookmaking is in fact illegal, while racing authorities in Australia are looking at ways to address the leakage of turnover from racing to other sports. And there's a balance there between fixed odds and pool betting. So it's a really interesting international situation. And really the aim of today's webinar is to highlight the continuing relevance and benefits of the tote model, which I think we all believe in strongly, but it's important that we articulate that to customers, to governments, regulators, and indeed the racing industry that we all work with so closely in our different countries. And let's be honest, also talk about the challenges we face, but also the opportunities. We've got some fantastic speakers today that I'm very glad can join me. So and those speaking today will be myself. I will give a perspective from the UK to start with. So yeah, you'll hear a bit from me for the first part of this session. And I'm Director of Communications and Corporate Affairs at the Tote. And I've been part of the team since 2018, ahead of when we bought the Tote in 2019. And before my role at the Tote, I worked in British horse racing for Arena Racing Company, which runs 16 race courses. And before that, I worked in Betfair, betting exchanges, and before that I worked in Parliament. And aside from my role, I've got several roles across British horse racing that I've been involved with for a long time. And I'm delighted to be joined by speakers that include Lambert Carus, who is the Carus Group's Communications and PR Director. Lambert has a master's degree in marketing and joined Carus in September 2014, having previously worked as a digital project manager at a Paris communications agency. His involvement in the family company is no coincidence. He's got great knowledge of Pari Mutuel horse betting and a keen interest in fixed odds sports betting and poker, a deep understanding of the market. So we can really look forward to his presentation and what the Carus Group are doing. Petri Konkanenki is Vice President of the Gaming Services International for Vicus. He is the former CEO of the Finnish Horse Race Betting Company and Managing Director of Finnish Horse Racing Association. Petri has been involved in the horse racing and racing industry for almost 3 decades. He started as Managing Director of a racetrack in 1992. And his knowledge of pari-mutuel betting and commingling will provide an understanding of the international market and consumers' needs. So really look forward to his presentation and the views from Finland. And then we will also then cross the Atlantic and have a presentation from Pat Cummings, who is Executive Director of the Thoroughbred Idea Foundation. Pat is a former executive of Hong Kong Jockey Club, actually where we first met, and racing technology and data provider Trackers. Pat has been involved in racing for the last 2 decades, so has enormous experience, and he currently leads the Thoroughbreds Ideas Foundation, which is a privately funded non-profit think tank serving the organisation's voice on all projects and efforts in the debate around betting. He joined following 3 years at the Hong Kong Jockey Club in the Public Affairs Division and has a wealth of international racing experience. Originally from Philadelphia, he's also covered racing in Dubai and a number of other outlets for a decade. So we've got some great speakers and a really varied opinions and landscapes that we're all operating in. So we look forward to those presentations. And as I said, we're each going to talk for 10 or 15 minutes, and we've got some slides to share, and then we will open it up to Q&A. So as I say, please put those questions into that function, and I'll share those with who they're directed at afterwards. So I think we're all set, and I am going to share my screen in order to lead you on the presentation that I will start with first of all. Hopefully everyone can see that, and I will start from the beginning. So I am going to offer the view of what pool betting is like in the UK, and indeed hopefully make a compelling case for it. And I want to talk about what is the Tote, which we'll be familiar with, but it's something that we're constantly explaining here in the UK. We're also often explaining what pool betting is. It's not a given that everyone knows it here, or even if they think they do, they don't actually. And then I want to just cover how we talk to some of the key stakeholders that we need to work with in the UK at what is a fascinating time for the sector. So I'll cover governments, the regulator, racing industry and customers, and just finish with some of the innovations and investments that we're making, which I know will resonate hopefully with what other countries are doing with their pool betting product. So start with what's the Tote. So when we're explaining the Tote here in the UK, we start very much with going back to the heart of British horse racing. We're very, very proud of our industry here. I think it's unique in terms of the history and heritage that it has. For example, on the left there, we're incredibly lucky to have Her Majesty the Queen as the greatest patron of our sport. To have the likes of the classics and indeed the Royal Ascot meeting, and we certainly don't take that for granted. It's a great compliment to British racing that pretty much every other racing nation now has a derby of some sort. So we're very proud of that, and that's something that we emphasise. But in a more modern setting, moving to the points on the right, it's also important to emphasise the massive role that the racing industry has in the UK. So it's an industry that's worth over 4 billion. It's probably a little bit more than that now. That statistic's a bit old, and employs over 85,000 people. We're consistently in normal years, not the last year, but in normal years, the second most attended sport in the country. And we're incredibly lucky to have 3 excellent media channels that cover our sport, which is unique. No other sport has that amount of media coverage. So we're very lucky, and that's the conversation that we start with at the Tote. This is our sport that we're working with. When it comes to the UK Tote and talking about our foundations, it's very important to go back to the principles of why was the Tote founded. This was done in 1928 by a certain Winston Churchill when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer, with 2 very clear ambitions: to provide a safe and controlled way of betting, and to ensure that a proportion of that the funds from betting went back to the sport of horse racing. And those 2 principles are absolutely key today. I think they're very distinct often from the rest of the sector, certainly the fixed odds sector, and they're really important to emphasise with policymakers that is why the Tote exists, and it's certainly the principles that we operate under as the UK Tote Group. And we're the sole pool betting provider for British horse racing, present on every racecourse, the pool is, and the Tote has a long history with government. Which, you know, most policymakers, even if they're not up to date on the Tote now, do remember that. And it was sold eventually in 2011 to Betfred before we purchased it in 2019. So again, we always go back to the foundations of the Tote. We also then share who we are as the UK Tote Group. obviously led by Alex Frost, our Chief Executive and board member of the World Tote Association. But behind that, we've got 185 individual private investors, all investing their own money. The vast majority all have huge investments in racing already, owning and breeding racehorses. So they're already very closely linked with the sport. And we also have some very influential business people, particularly Michael Spencer, who's one of the country's most successful business people. Sir Nicholas Soames is an investor and advisor to us, and he is the grandson of Churchill. So there's a nice synergy there. So it's people who are really invested in the long-term future of the tote, which again makes us very distinct from our fixed odds competitors here, most of whom are public companies on the stock market with publicly listed stocks and operate very differently to us. And some of those headlines on the right are what were created when we bought the tote. People could see what a radical change this was to have these type of people invested in the tote. And that was seen as a very positive thing. Something else that we emphasize hugely here in the UK, and we're very proud of, is in the midst of lockdown last year, we formed a partnership with Tote Ireland, which brings together all of the racecourses, 85 racecourses across the UK and Ireland, which is 2,000 fixtures and a large number of the top class races, both on the flat and the jumps. And it means we can work in partnership with our closest neighbours, pool betting neighbours, which is a great advantage to us and something that we're very proud of and really enjoy doing. So again, it shows the scale of our ambitions for the tote and our partnership to work with other totes around the world. And that was done in the middle of last year in lockdown. So that is something that we emphasise a lot here as well. Something else that we talk about, which resonates very well with our stakeholder, is the World Tote Association, which we'll all be familiar with here. But being a founding member and a board member, along with so many other great operators, is something we're very proud of. I think it gives us a unique opportunity to all work together. And again, for people that's in the UK who might not have given pool betting that much thought in recent years, the tote here has always been called the sleeping giant. It's another sign of our ambition to cooperate with our partners and grow the tote. So it's something very important to us. So if that's our story, what we then always have to do is actually go back and explain what pool betting is. Now, this will probably be very obvious to everyone on this call, but I think it's helpful to show what we talk about with policymakers. So when we're explaining pool betting, we often, this is a slide we've used over the last couple of years. We highlight fixed odds as something where you've got to generate revenue from customer losses. So essentially, if you're having a bet, there can only be one winner. It's either the operator or the customer. And that's something that is distinct from pool betting. As we know, our model doesn't require that. It's also important, I think, I emphasize, particularly here in the UK market, and I'd be interested to see if this is the same in other markets, that really the fixed odds, particularly the horse racing betting product, is used to drive customer acquisition and then often cross-sell to gaming, which is better understood now by policymakers. And to emphasise that obviously, as we know, fixed odds is illegal in lots of parts of the world. And it's also seen as quite adversarial here, particularly, I think, because of lots of the marketing that's taken place. It's been very much quite shouty, loud marketing, distinct from the approach we want to take of being on the side of the customer and betting with the toters against it. And a major and sort of growing frustration for a lot of customers here in the UK is the fact that if you are successful at racehorse betting, you will have your account eventually restricted or shut down, and that is a growing issue that's had more coverage. However, fixed odds is still the dominant part of the market, versus pool betting, which we always try and explain here in the UK as a type of more like the lottery. Everything goes into a pool, there's a takeout, and then we divide the money up depending on the result. And it's more open, it's sociable, it's less adversarial, it's far more transparent for the regulator. And the great thing for customers is that we can welcome winning customers. And often people will still, in horse racing here, will still say, oh, it must have been a difficult day, all the favourites won on Saturday, without understanding that, of course, the tote model doesn't matter. What the result is, it's agnostic about the results. So that's how we explain the difference between the two. And then in order to help do this in a way with customers, we've actually just updated a short video where we explain about pool betting. So I'll just play this. It's about 1.5 minutes, and as I say, it's been updated last week. We haven't released a new version, so it's a bit of a premiere for you all. You're the first people to see it. So I shall play this now.
Pool betting has been popular since the 1920s, when a certain Winston Churchill set up the Tote. In some ways, it's identical to regular betting. You choose your horse and place your bet. Instead of handing over your money to a bookmaker, everyone's stakes are pulled together by the Tote. If your horse wins, you share the pool of money with the others who backed it, minus a small percentage the Tote takes out for operating the pool. If you bet on an outsider, you'll usually win more than you would with a bookmaker, because you'll be sharing a pool of money with fewer people, so more for you. And now, with our Tote guarantee in place, the Tote pool price will always match or exceed the bookmaker's starting price on winners. As well as being able to bet on a single race, one bet can cover a whole day of racing, and small stakes can mean huge wins. People have won over £1 million for just a £2 bet. And the Tote rewards loyalty. So all customers betting directly at tote.co.uk using the Tote app now receive our Tote Plus offering, enabling you at least 10% more on every winning bet. So when you bet with the Tote, part of the profits always go back into racing. The Tote is now working with World Pool to make bigger global pools for customers and greater returns for the sport. So even if you don't win, racing does. Your Tote. Great value, great fun, and great for racing.
So hopefully everyone can see there, that's a nice straightforward way of explaining what the Tote is. So you'll see us using that on our social media channels in the coming weeks. The other thing we have to talk about here in the UK is just the scale of the opportunity of pool betting. These are some of the numbers that try to estimate what the market looks like in other countries. And it's something that's not often understood here in the UK, and we're getting that message across about the opportunity if all of the pool betting operators around the world can work together, and what that can do for our racing industry. And that's starting to be better understood here. So in the second half of my presentation, I just want to run through how we talk to stakeholders and see it might resonate with others, that we're having similar conversations in other countries, or we might be saying different things. So one of our really important stakeholders is the government. We're in the middle of a gambling review here in the UK. We can expect the first bit of legislation, the white paper, at the end of the year, before potentially a bill next year, and perhaps changes probably from 2023 onwards. So for us as the Tote, it's very important to emphasise our close links with government. Our betting model, as I talked about, more like a lottery, less like fixed odds. We're very proud to be based in Wigan here in the UK, everything on shore. That's another important message for government, as is our symbiotic relationship with horse racing. And also, really crucially, we're not part of an industry group here. We talk to government as the Tote, and as a member of the World Tote Association, we have our own voice with government. And in fact, that picture is taken from October 2019, before times when we were allowed to get that close to each other, at a parliamentary reception we held when we bought the Tote. And that's Alex addressing members of parliament and guests from the racing industry. And we also had a speaker from our local MP, Lisa Nandy, who's the Shadow Foreign Secretary. So that's something we're doing all the time, is talking to policymakers and ensuring that they understand what the Tote's about and our ambitions. And linked closely with that, we have a very, very close relationship with the Gambling Commission, who are our regulator here in the UK. I'm sure every every operator on the call here has an equally close relationship with their regulator. We've made huge investments in the compliance processes and expertise that we have, and that will only continue in the years ahead as more requirements are made on operators to behave responsibly, understand more about their customers, and ensure no one comes to harm when they're betting. And also, for the first time, we've ensured that the Tote contributes to the research, education and treatment of problem gambling, which it didn't under its previous ownership. So that's another very important relationship for us. It goes without saying, I think, that we have a close and important relationship with racing. It really is unique. We are present on all 59 race courses, and we have a relationship with them that ensures that we'll make a minimum payment to them of £50 million over the first 7 years of our ownership. And we have some very high profile supporters in the sport, such as classic winning trainer John Gosden there, Frankie Dettori and other leading voices. And we've also tried, as the new owners of the Tote, to go above and beyond what we have to do, but do more. So, for example, we support a very important scheme with the Racehorse Owners Association, which means that the Tote is carried on jockey silks, and in return, owners can claim the VAT back on their training costs, which has a huge multi-million-pound benefit for the industry every year. And that's something we've supported now for nearly 2 years. And presenting the Tote to customers, very, very crucial, because if we don't have customers wanting to bet with us, we don't have a business. So this simple chart just explains some of the things we've done since we bought the Tote. So in less than 2 years, we've launched a new website. We've talked a lot about better value, which is a big issue here in the UK because pool betting has not been seen as a good value bet, and I'll talk about that next on my next slide. We brought back 10 to follow, a game that was very, very popular, both the jumps and the flat season. You pick 10 horses in your stable and you see how they perform, and the winner wins lots of money, and we've the prizes go right through often to 500th place, so it feels like everyone can be a winner if they play 10 to follow. We've introduced new bet types. Whirlpool, which we're all familiar with, has been a hugely important selling point as well. Much deeper pools, more interesting betting opportunities on our feature race days. And we've introduced an app because there's still sometimes a feeling here that the Tote's about betting on a race course, and we're constantly pushing that digital message that it's on your phone, and it's a great experience there. And, you know, when we talk to customers such as Matt, who's quoted there on the right, you know, influential people in the betting industry, what they want from the Tote is value. They love the big pools, the unique multi-leg bets and the rollovers, which I think would all be familiar with, things we're familiar with, which are unique to pool betting, and which are our selling point to customers. That's very much what we hear, and those are the things that we want to focus on. So what are we doing? A snapshot, and these are things that members of our team I know have talked about on different events and meetings that we've had with our World Tote Association members, but sort of 3 key areas where we're trying to make sure that the Tote is really best in class and offering customers exactly what they want. Was Tote Guarantee, which means that we will never be undersold on the starting price. It's one of the issues with pool betting is you don't know what price you're going to get when you place your bet, but Tote Guarantee means you can never lose out and you'll get the pool price. If the pool price is bigger, you'll get that price. So that's really resonated with customers, to have a reason to bet with a Tote and never feel like they're going to lose out. Tote Plus was very recently introduced this year, and that's to attract people direct to the Tote by giving them a 10% enhancement on dividends. And again, that's starting to resonate, and you're seeing that coming through in our adverts. So the advert in the middle of the page is from the first day of Royal Ascot, which had Tote Guarantee, Tote Plus in place, and was of course a Whirlpool day as well, where you're offering people a unique experience to bet into huge pools, no restrictions on the size of their bet compared to, you know, if they're betting with fixed odds bookmakers who don't want the liabilities, and it's at a low margin that again can't be matched by the fixed odds sector. So the Whirlpool days are really starting to resonate here as unique opportunities for those who want to bet on horse racing. And on the right there you can see some of the headlines that are being created through Whirlpool and our innovations to the Tote, and hopefully just the start, but not bad for our first year. here, I won't talk through all these numbers, but these are just some of the things that our business intelligence team have put together. So just to resonate and show some of the growth that we've had as the Tote. As I say, we've been starting as UK Tote Group, a lot smaller operation than some of our World Tote Association members, but we're on a steep curve in growing the business. So those are some stats, which, as I say, will be in the presentation circulated by Florence afterwards, if anyone's interested. So thankfully, you'll be pleased to hear that's probably enough from me for the first part of this session. I shall stop sharing my screen and I shall hand over to Lambert to talk about his role at the Carouse Group and what they are up to in their markets and how they operate versus the fixed odds sector. Lambert, are you okay to share your screen and pick up?
Yeah, just 2 seconds.
No problem. I shall go on to mute.
Sorry, for some reason I can't see the whole screen. But
Do you want me to share your presentation?
I will try to find. Hold on.
I've got it. I can share it if you can't, if it's not working on your laptop.
Okay, maybe I can ask you to switch the slides.
Yep, no problem. Here we go. So, add that. Everyone see that?
It's like in a very small screen. It's weird. It's a technical issue, but it's like in a really small screen. But okay, go ahead.
Okay, hopefully everyone else can see that clearly. Pat, can you see that big? Just let me know. Great.
No, it's just like in a really tiny screen, but it's going to be
okay, I think it's okay for everyone else. So if you know your slides,
okay. So
I'll do the next. Just tell me next and I'll do that.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to speak today at the World Tote Association webinar. Next slide, please, Susanna. First of all, I would like to present our company and its subsidiaries. Carouse Group is a family company specializing in providing services and technological solutions dedicated to horse racing, sport betting, and lottery operators. Carouse Group is the world's oldest company in Pari Mutuel. Carouse, our company, is composed of 4 separate divisions. The first one, Carouse Services, is the long-standing company responsible for handling bets at race courses, including both logistics, technical solutions, and betting operations. Carouse Solutions, the second division, is the group industrial branch, which designs technological solutions for horse racing betting operators, including counter terminals, mobile terminals, self-service kiosks, and digital solutions such as digital wallets, dedicated websites, and odds display system. Carouse Gaming is similar to Carouse Solution, so it's in an industrial branch as well. But in addition to services devoted to horse racing betting operators, extend its remit to sports betting and lotteries. This division is a recent addition to our company and was acquired in 2020 from IDEMIA. With this acquisition of IDEMIA Gaming Terminal Division, we consolidate our presence among horse racing betting operators and we diversify into sports and lottery betting services. And finally, our company is also in charge of the concession at San Sebastian racecourse in the Spanish Basque region, where we run betting operation at the racecourse and across a chain of 12 betting shops in the areas. This activity is a great insight in how our customers, the operators, run their business, and it's an interesting way to understand some of the challenges involved. Next slide, please, Susanna. So now you know more about what we do. I would like to say a few words about Pari Mutuel. Pari Mutuel is a fair betting system for a number of reasons. It was created to prevent cheating and fraud. And with this system, operators are able to detect any suspicious bets. Pari Mutuel betting is also a way to ensure operators remain neutral and objective. Whatever the result of the race, operators take the same deduction, the same commission, and therefore have no interest into the outcome of the race. And furthermore, this betting model ensures better revenues to horse racing companies. Next slide, please, Susanna. And for those who may not have noticed, Pari Mutuel sounds French, like my accent, which is not coincidence because Pari Mutuel is a French invention. Joseph Euler, a Spanish immigrant, previously a bookmaker, invented the Pari Mutuel in 1868. Before then, betting wasn't regulated and was driven by fraudulent backstreet bookmakers. A few years later, his former partner, who became later on his rival, Albert Chauvin, launched his own manual system. And in 1888, the Compagnie du Pari Mutuel, known today as Carus Services that I mentioned before, the only betting management company handling bets across 235 racecourses in France. June the 1st, 1891, the French government ratified the law regulating Pari Mutuel betting and banned fixed odd betting. Since that date, the Compagnie du Pari Mutuel, Carus Services, has been the driving force of a major part of Pari Mutuel's developments. In 1930, André Carus, who is Albert Chauvin, who was Albert Chauvin's son-in-law and who was my great-great-grandfather that I never met, created the Pari Mutuel Urbain, the PMU, which, as the name suggests, it's all about introducing betting into urban areas through cafes and bars and developing, of course, betting. The creation of the PMU was revolutionary in increasing popularity of horse racing and in bringing betting to towns and cities, whereas it was only available at race courses. In 1954, André Carus invented the tiercé, the trifecta bet, which found tremendous success during the glorious 30s, during the post-war boom. Next slide, please, Susanna. A few years later came the time of the automation of the betting collecting system. In 1964, our company introduced the world's first totalizator at Vincennes Racecourse. In 1972, we conceived the first cash and sell system installed at Longchamp, Chantilly, and Deauville racecourses. And in 1986 was the automation of Carus terminals, and in 1996, the PMU updated its equipment with our terminals, with our equipments. Next slide, please, Susanna. In the 20th century, we entered the digital age. The first self-service kiosks were introduced in 2002. More recently, Carus has remained at the cutting edge of technology, introducing betting website in 2010, a digital wallet in 2017, and an innovative odds display system in 2019. So hopefully now you have a better understanding of how Pari Mutuel and our company are inextricably linked and how Pari Mutuel is part of our company DNA. So now let's focus on the present day. Next slide, please. Thank you, Susanna. So if you want to place bets in France offline, there are two historic and monopolistic operators, companies that are authorized to sell bets. The first one is the PMU, who is responsible for Pari Mutuel horse betting. And the second one is the Française des Jeux for lottery betting, scratch cards, fixed odds, and Pari Mutuel sports betting. Next slide, please, Susanna. In 2010, with the opening to competition of internet betting, anyone successfully obtaining a license has the right to sell bets, knowing that today only Pari Mutuel mode is allowed for horse racing. Since 2014, on and offline betting have been managed entirely separately. The decision to differentiate the two pools and to run them separately was enforced by the French national competition regulator to ensure fairness between the historic and the historic operator, the PMU, and the new entering operators. Next slide, please, Susanna. Before 2014, all the bets collected online and offline were gathered in the same pool. And all online and offline punters had access to the same dividends. Next slide, please, Susanna. Since 2014, punters betting online through betting website or betting application have different dividends to punters betting offline in the point of sales or on race courses. Next slide, please, Susanna. It's like it's a teamwork. Today, online bets represent 25% of total bets, and offline bets represent 75% of total bets. Susanna, please again, next slide. So keeping the two betting pool entirely separate ensures fairness for the operators, but not necessarily for the punters. When all bets, both online and offline, are collected in a central pool, online punters located outside France are able to place bets right until the last second before the start of the race, which can have significant impact on odds for punters betting offline in France, in the points of sale or at the race courses. So we need to create a more fair system for all punters, the one betting offline outside France and the one betting offline in France. And creating a more fair system. A fair system it's one of the underlying mission of the Pari Mutuel system. So how could we create a more fair system for all punters? As long as online bets account for 50% or more of total bets placed online will need to be stopped 2 or 3 minutes before the start of the race, or at least 2 or 3 minutes before we stop to sell bets offline. Next slide, please, Susanna. So now I have explained the unique way of splitting the pools, very special in France. I would like to conclude by saying a few words about fixed odd betting, which is becoming increasingly popular in many countries. In the USA, for example, the market is seeing significant change, and we cannot swim against the tide. We need to listen our customers, and the offer must adapt to demand. Introducing fixed odds in horse racing betting will require a change to the law, and everybody knows that could take a lot of time. Another issue that will need to be addressed if fixed odd betting is introduced is how horse racing industry will be supported financially. A percentage of the Pari Mutuel money is channeled back into the horse racing industry. Pari Mutuel betting provide preponderant funding to French horse racing, and to a much greater extent than in France than in any other country, which explains the larger prize money in French races. If the law changes and fixed odds is introduced in France, then we will have to reconsider how the industry is financed. But this is not something that we're gonna solve here today. I'm done, and thank you for your time and for your attention. If you have any question, feel free to ask me your question.
Wonderful, thank you, Lambert. That was a fascinating history. Plenty of things I didn't know about, and the unique split between the pools as well. So I'm sure that will generate some questions. We're now going to skip back up north to Northern Europe to go to Finland to join Pertti there. So are you able to share your presentation and pick up things from there?
Thank you very much, Susanna. So good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are located at the moment. So we have an afternoon here. Hopefully you can see my screen now. Good, thank you. So nice shoes, these horses, or actually socks. Today I'm going to tell you about a few things about the background of Pari Mutuel betting in Finland, what is today horse betting in Finland, and something quite, how do I say, nice knowledge about customer segments and target groups for sports betting and horse betting, because after the merge, so we have now also some kind of data about the consumer and consumer segments. And then there's a, how would I say that our opinions that where is Pari Mutuel versus fixed odds pros and cons, so how we can see these things in Finland and in our experience. Horse racing has started in 1817 in Finland, and that time we had only races on ice, so we didn't have a racetracks in Finland in the beginning of 1800. But we have a quite long history about the trotting races in Finland. Unfortunately, we don't have thoroughbred races in Finland today, so we don't have gallop races like other Scandinavian countries or UK. So we have only trotting races in Finland today, and it was quite nice to notice that actually Pari Mutuel and UK Tote started in 1928 in the United Kingdom, and actually the same year what we have in Finland. So the first Totalisator Act came into force 18 November 1927, and we have first Totalisator races in the beginning of 1928. So actually same year as in UK Tote was established. And then actually it's quite late that we introduced fixed odds betting for horse races, and the reason is that there was a horse racing association who operate Pari Mutuel betting, and it was illegal to offer fixed odds betting before all those three betting companies were merged in 2016, in late 2016, and then when this current Veikkaus Oy, where I'm also working, started 2017, so then we also introduced fixed odds betting for horses, and that's now we have a monopoly for all gaming in Finland. So Veikkaus has very, how would I say, specific position. I don't know that kind of territory that you have monopoly for all gaming verticals like we have here in Finland. But I think that the main issue is that we have a long history about the Pari Mutuel, but very early history about fixed odds betting, so only few years. And then, of course, one major issue is that fixed odds betting for sports even was launched 1993, and actually it's quite big thing, and it was very popular also in the beginning, and of course football and ice hockey are those sports events what the Finns really love to bet. So ice hockey and football, and you know that there's now going to this European Championship. So at the moment, fixed odds betting for football or soccer, it's very big at the moment. Also in this evening when there is a good match again. And you can also notice that the Pari Mutuel betting has been quite stable in the last 5 years. So something like 230 million euros. So quite steady this turnover. So how would I say that those people who are betting horses, they are very loyal people. So they are betting many times per week, maybe 4 to 5 times per week, maybe daily basis. So we have really loyal customers for Pari Mutuel. And then of course co-mingling is a big thing. I think that's the biggest thing at the moment. So of course we are betting heavily to Sweden. So there's big pools, V75 on Saturdays, V86 on Wednesdays, and then big pools. So of course Finns loves that they can bet big dividends, and they can bet also the quality of the races are very high level. And I'm also very happy that we have a lot of collaboration between all Scandinavian countries, Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. And of course, French races are also very popular in Finland, especially if there are big international races like Prix d'Amérique and so on. But in my opinion, the big benefit for Pari Mutuel betting is that there are so various kind of bet types. So we have developed many kind of bet types. Like I said, that those big pools, Toto 75 in Finland, on Wednesdays, Toto 65. So those multi-leg bet types, they are very attractive, and Finns loves those multi-leg bet types. So V4, V5, V65, V75, they are very popular in Finland. And also, of course, the trifecta is very popular because it's giving also high dividends many times. So if I put it quite straight, that Finns are looking for high dividends with small stakes. So they are investing very small stakes, but they are thinking that today they will hit the jackpot. So that's very typical Finn customer. And then we are offering as a Veikkaus company, we have only Wednesdays and Saturdays when we are offering fixed odds betting. And the main reason why we have limited offers for fixed odds betting is that because normal days there is, how would I put it, that there is a small risk that you can manipulate the races. So we are offering only fixed odds betting when we have a big prize monies for the horse owners, big prize monies for the drivers. So we really want to avoid manipulation risks. So we are offering only when we have a high quality races, when we have a high prize monies, then we have fixed odds betting, not the normal races, not the races which has a very small prices for the owners or drivers. And of course, then we have when we have a major trotting events, of course, then we have also fixed odds betting. And normally we are offering that there are 3 favorites, and then the fourth is it includes the rest of horses in that race. So 4 fixed odds in one race. And payout 85, it's actually the same what we are offering in win pool. So in my opinion, that the 85 is not so attractive because you can get the same payout also in win pool. And of course, we have this limited number of fixed odd races. So it means also that it's not get so much revenue for us. So it's only 1% of our total fixed odds betting cross gaming revenue. And if I think of what is coming, the 99, so football is the biggest one, ice hockey is the second one, and then it's coming tennis and the other sports. But football and ice hockey, they are, I think, about 80% of our cross game revenue about fixed odds betting. So the other sports events are much smaller. But what our people thinks, and also I think that for horses, this fixed odds betting, it's a value-added service. So when we are offering these fixed odds for horse races, also it increase the interest of pool betting. And I think that there are quite many people that they take a look about what is the fixed odds prices on Wednesdays when we have this Toto 65 or Saturday's Toto 75, and then when they are planning their own ticket for this multi-leg bet type, so they get also some kind of forecast from these fixed odds what we have placed for these fixed odds. So in mainly this is a value-added service, and it increase the interest for pool betting in many cases. And also I think that that when Veikkaus is offering these fixed odds betting, we are also avoiding that those people will not bet outside of the Finland. So also we have somehow we will limit that the money is not flowing outside the Finland. So we need that kind of service also in that sense. And then we can see some numbers and about these customer segments, and it's quite interesting to notice that that those people who are betting fixed odds, so about 70% are also participating in pool betting, but it's much less the number in the opposite way. So only 11% of pool betting customers are taking part in fixed odds betting. And my personal opinion is that, and also that I can share with my colleagues, that now when we are offering these fixed odds betting in our website in different place than pool betting, so there are some bettors or customers who will not notice about these fixed odds offers. So we should also offer these fixed odds betting in same pages where we have these pool betting. So because we have a huge amount of fixed odds offers, so it may be that people will not notice about these horse betting fixed odds offers. And then I think that you and many colleagues can share this opinion that COVID-19 has a good impact for Pari Mutuel betting, because despite this COVID-19, we had a racing in Sweden, and we were commingling with Sweden all the time, and we had something like 2 months break, 3 months break in racing in Finland, but other sports were locked down many months. So of course there were some new customers who started to bet Pari Mutuel due to the fact that there was not offering about the football at the same time. So COVID-19 actually influenced in positive way for horse racing in Finland. I think that also my colleague in Sweden can share this opinion. And of course there are a lot of offers, but as you noticed earlier, Pari Mutuel betting has been quite stable and maintained its position, so it has been quite steady many years, a long time. And then if I will put it that how I see about the pros and cons about Pari Mutuel and fixed odds betting. So in Finland we can see that Pari Mutuel, it's a long history, traditional, and like I said it, that Finns prefer that you can invest small amount, small stakes, but you can win 1 million euro, 2 million euro if you have a common pool with Sweden. So people love to have this kind of how would I say, dreams. They are dreaming, they are not winning, but they are dreaming. But then the other way is that of course this fixed odds betting have also something good things, and I think that it's a value added service, and I think it's a little bit attract more young customers than Pari Mutuel. So I could put also that Pari Mutuel is mainly about men who are like my age, 52. But then if there are sports betting and then fixed odds betting, they are younger and they are very keen on sports. So they are following some teams or league, and they are maybe between 20 to 40. So also these Pari Mutuel and fixed odds betting, they are attractive, different customer group. But in both cases, we are missing ladies. That's unfortunate. But that's it. That was my presentation, and very willing to hear questions later. Thanks.
Thank you, Bertie. That was fascinating insight into the Finnish markets. And I was jotting a few things down that we can talk about at the end. But as we're delighted to welcome our final speaker, still pretty early in the morning in the US. So thanks for joining, Pat. And if you can give us an insight into what's going on in America, that would be fascinating, because it's probably changed quite considerably since we all got together to have a chat last week, given the pace that things are moving over there. So over to you, Pat.
Thanks, Susanna. It has. I had to update a slide, in fact, on a state that is moved towards the legalization of fixed odds sports betting. And in case anyone doubted that there was a sunrise today, it happened in the course of this presentation over my shoulder. I'm going to address the state of really some rapid changes in the North American markets, both as it relates to racing and, of course, the dramatic evolution of fixed odds sports betting. Just a little background on our organization. Thoroughbred Idea Foundation is a privately funded think tank and advocacy group. It's basically founded by some concerned owners who were unhappy with the pace of change in racing. And I can acknowledge that the pace of change hasn't increased all that much in our 3 years of operation, but certainly we're talking about things that need to be done and changes that are necessary from a bit of a different angle. Our hope is to improve the sport for the two optional financial participants in racing, the gamblers and the horse owners. And if you improve the way in which the sport interacts with those two groups, we think you actually improve the sport for everybody that's associated in some way, shape, or form. We have a series of white papers, research reports, blogs, and whatnot that you can find at racingthinktank.com. In terms of what I'm going to talk about today, here's just a quick little agenda. We'll address some thoughtful questions. In particular, who's actually betting in these tote pools in America? Do we really understand our customer base and how it has shifted over time? The North American market is greatly influenced as it relates to pari-mutuel wagering by some very high volume customers. These are customers who are, essentially, I think, for lack of a better term, scientific bettors would be one term that's been used by some experts in the space. But we're going to start out by looking at where the state of overall wagering is. We'll start in America right now and focus on this both in terms of fixed odds and racing. This is fixed odds sports betting, and the states that are highlighted here that are colored in are those where there's been some sort of either already active legal sports betting, it's pending implementation, or there's been some sort of tribal compact, because there are Native American tribes which control gaming in certain states, and just because they're all colored here do not necessarily mean that they're all the same. So the legalization started in New Jersey back in 2018 after the U.S. Supreme Court overturned a piece of legislation from the 1990s it deemed to be unconstitutional. Since that point of time, there's been almost $60 billion bet, and that ignores a few of the states that have not come onto this yet, California notably, Texas, which may still be at least 2 years away, if not more. And slow growth, not slow growth, but growth on a state-by-state basis. The convenience and delivery of fixed odds betting services varies dramatically. So in New Jersey, a state of maybe, it's a smaller state, let's put it that way. There's maybe 33 different providers. 85% of wagering takes place through mobile devices, whereas in a state like New York, they have not enabled mobile wagering just yet for fixed odds. So it varies quite considerably. But as it relates to horse racing, this, of course, has been a tremendous competitive threat. But I think we would be overstating it if we said that sports betting all of a sudden is blowing racing out of the water. It's not. Horse racing and wagering in North America has been hurting itself for plenty long enough. The decline in overall wagering, I'll show you the numbers in just a moment, but it's been a long, slow road, a substantial decline. The bottom point on this slide, though, it's worth noting that New Jersey just 10 days ago, essentially 15 days ago, has legalized fixed odds betting for racing. They're the first state that's really evolving fixed odds betting for racing. It's coming. The governor is due to sign it, I believe, this week, and they're hoping to have it up and running in 2 or 3 weeks, both on international races, races that are run in the state of New Jersey, and perhaps more importantly, races that are run outside of the state of New Jersey through simulcasting. So there will be a way to capture some money there. And of course, there is a revenue sharing agreement in place. It is required basically by law here in America. And that's betting back with the industry, of course. Here's a look at where we stand in terms of the change in total wagering in US racing, all of this being pools betting from 2000 to 2020. You see, just these are the raw figures for thoroughbred racing, 14 billion US in 2000 versus just shy of 11 billion last year. But when you adjust these numbers for inflation, the situation is considerably worse. That realistically in the 2 decades from 2000 to 2020, total inflation adjusted wagering in US racing is down by half, and just by 45% in the last 15 years, and down by a fifth in the last 10 years. It has not been good business as it relates to racing. There's been consolidation. Granted, we are running fewer races, right? The number of races run in North America has also declined by quite a bit. But clearly there is less money going through the system. And of course, all of this wagering is pari-mutuel. Keep in mind that essentially US racing has had a pari-mutuel pools betting monopoly over this entire period. And it has basically been all within the range of internet betting. Has been legal this entire time. So it's a really poor performing betting business at a period of time where other betting businesses, casinos, and now in the last few years, sports betting are booming. Canada, to the north of us, has been surprisingly moving pretty quickly in 2021. There is every expectation it will be up and running within the next few months. Just last week, a final ceremonial step was crossed, and the Canadian provinces will now be allowed to determine how they introduce fixed odds sports betting. It's notable that horse racing was actively excluded from the legislation that went through, and that's because there is no revenue sharing agreement that if racing was allowed to be offered at fixed odds, there was no requirement that in any way, shape, or form operators share money with the industry. So horse racing was actively excluded from this piece of legislation. It's noted that in America, there is a piece of legislation from 1978 called the Interstate Horse Racing Act, which requires some sharing of revenue as it relates to taking bets on horse racing back with the horse people for prize money and with the operators of the racetracks. It is worth noting that the pari-mutuel situation in Canada has been a bit brighter than its larger neighbor to the south. In raw numbers, things look pretty good, but even if you adjust for inflation, they're positive within the last 10 years with decent growth. Keep in mind that the prime operator here in the thoroughbred space is Woodbine in Toronto, and they've had some really solid management over the past few years that has helped oversee some of this. So some considerations I want the listeners and the visitors here today to start considering is really how competitive is your pari-mutuel wagering product? And one of the things that our organization has been looking at is what is the composition of the customers within betting? So the question to those who have been speaking before, to Pertti, is how much of the 230 million euros that is bet is coming from what we would consider mainstream customers? How much of that, how many mainstream customers, retail customers are representative of that money in the UK, or for Lambert's presentation in France through the PMU. We're starting to get a picture of this through some data that we've uncovered, basically some in public sources and some by questioning individual state governments to get this information. But what percentage of that 10, 11 billion dollars that's being bet in US racing is actually coming from high volume, heavily rebated syndicates? Here's just a look at some of the data that we've been able to uncover from America last year, 2020. The numbers in previous years, it should be worth noting, are not, they're only a little bit smaller. So this concentration has been increasing. But at Del Mar, for example, in their pick 5 pools, picking 5 consecutive winners across a full 42-day stand at Del Mar, 34% of their pick 5 pool came from just one very small, high volume betting shop. Legal, mind you, but only about 8 customers made up 34% of all their pick 5 pool. At Golden Gate outside of San Francisco, their jackpot pick 6 pool, I'll talk more about jackpot bets in a second, represented 41% of all the money bet came from one small group of about 8 customers. They were more than 2/5 of that entire pool. And at Gulfstream Park, a very major track in Florida, we've been looking at some handle turnover figures on certain days. There are days that we have found where up to 38% of all wagering, all betting, is coming from one group of super high volume, heavily rebated customers. So we're seeing this tremendous concentration of betting in the hands of a very small few. And it's not anything that's problematic about those individual customers and why they're participating, but it's that the operators have allowed those customers, that have given them the rebates and the incentives to do so. And you wonder at what cost. So we believe that there's in North America, even though you see that things have maybe held steady the last 5 years or so, it's that the composition of those pools have changed pretty substantially. And to what drawback? How much is it exactly? We don't have an answer. We're hypothesizing it is roughly 1/3 of total wagering. I'll give you just an example in a minute from last weekend, but the 2 main drawbacks that we see, of course, things that Susanna has talked about and Lambert has talked about, the lack of price certainty in pool betting, that your heaviest customers are enabled by the industry to dump remarkable amounts of money at the very last second, get all of their bets in, and really affect the overall prices that customers have. All of the evolution in the American wagering space is coming through fixed odds, where every bet, of course, has a set price and the customers know what they're getting. So it remains a very significant drawback to pools betting, even though right now it's the only option for the vast majority of customers. The other thing that's notable, and it's funny based on what Pertti was saying about how Finland and of course Sweden are very focused on these large jackpot bets with big carryovers. In America, we've seen an increased focus in what we consider to be jackpot bets, which are really bets where the jackpot can only be won if there is one single ticket. That one ticket has selected all of the winners. Otherwise, the pool continues to carry over and a small percentage of the daily pool is paid out. Of course, the focus on these types of bets is opposite of where fixed odds sports betting is going, right? Racing should want increased betting churn, money coming back through the system, but for whatever reason, the operators have continuously promoted these difficult to win wagers and made it even more so by adding these jackpot components where only one ticket, one entry can be the winner unless what happens sometimes is that after the pool builds up for a while, they choose to pay it out. And so this happened just this past weekend in Maryland at Pimlico, home of the Preakness Stakes, where on Sunday, there was a $1.4 million jackpot that had built up over days, months, in fact. And it generated $5.1 million in new betting. So they were forcing out the jackpot, and more than $5 million was bet. But if you observe the betting history and how the updates come in through the betting pools, and we've been doing this for different bets over the years, it becomes very noticeable when large bets are entered, and these are typically representative of these high volume customers. And when you looked at it, it was really disconcerting that almost 3 million or 56% of the new money that was bet, it was very likely to have come from these high volume scientific betting groups. And how healthy is it really to look at it and say, well, yeah, we got $5 million in new betting that we probably otherwise wouldn't have gotten today, but is it really coming from mainstream retail customers? Is it coming from a segment of our business that's growing? Not really. And this has been an ongoing concern in the North American space. Just a few additional challenges, and then I'll wrap up with some questions that were offered at the beginning. We continue to see pari-mutuel wagering challenged by a lack of rules harmonization, and this is across the country. So as commingling continues to grow, and the world pool is fantastic, there are some really inconsistent experiences out there, and we saw this happen at Royal Ascot in 2018. It happened again this past year. The lack of a harmonized non-runner rule, really taking advantage of customers. British racing does not have a rule in place that can straightforwardly declare a horse that did not get a fair start for any reason other than a malfunction in the stalls, getting a refund. And that cost punters millions of dollars across the world because a horse on one of the early days of the Royal Ascot meeting, its blindfold remained on, and it did not get a fair start, and yet was declared a starter. And it's a real failing of the British rules not to have evolved to this space. Ireland, for what it's worth, has a similar lack of definition of its rules on this point. Another area where North America really falls behind is in interference rules, where the interference rules for the rest of the world have pretty much been harmonized. But in the US, for anybody betting in Europe or Asia or Australia into US racing, can be very frustrated with the number of demotions that take place for really minor interference. It's really unfortunate. It is a topic that our organization has been trying to get changed. It's a long and slow road, but we are working on it. The second point here is the unequal approach to transparency in the North American space. North American jurisdictions, regulatory entities, the operators themselves, they do not report horses who bleed, horses who come back after racing and are lame, a thrown shoe, a reason for a scratch. They don't do it. And this is an area where North America will continue to fall behind. The thing that just doesn't make sense is that all other sports have increased the degree of reporting on participant health, and horse racing has not evolved in this space whatsoever. It is an area we really need to improve, and we are hopeful that the new Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority, which was passed by Congress last year, needs to be up and running by July of 2022. We'll have an opportunity to do that. So just in conclusion, some questions that were offered in some of the material sent out in advance of this webinar, some hypothetical questions here. Is pool betting more sustainable than fixed odds for racing? Has it stagnated? Is there room for growth? Can fixed odds betting serve as a much needed competitive correction to spur tote modernization? To all of these questions from the North American perspective, for good or for bad, the answer is yes. Right? Pool betting is undoubtedly more sustainable than fixed odds. But without investment in modern upgrades, pari-mutuel wagering in North America continues to fall flat as a competitive option. It has stagnated, but of course there's room for growth as a result. And we do think that the fixed odds presence can serve as a really needed push of competition to spur some modernization. So that's where we are in North America. It's rapidly evolving. For now, pari-mutuel wagering still leads. The question is just for how long, and will the long-term lack of investment really come back to bite the pools operators over time? We think that there is a greater opportunity than ever to modernize And they're starting to feel the pressure, and it will start in New Jersey here very shortly. And I think it will be very interesting to follow because many other states are really watching to see how that goes. So look forward to any questions. Still on mute, Susanna.
Brilliant. You think after a year and a half, we can all get the hang of this. Thank you so much, Pat, for that. I thought that brought together a lot of the key themes that we discussed across the different presentations. I mean, just some of the things I jotted down is, we've all talked about the small stakes and big wins for customers. I think we all understand that we're in competition with other sports. That's very clear for the customer, and that customers want choice. And I guess for me, this all underlines the need for innovation and cooperation between us all, because actually that's what will create a sustainable system for operators and for customers. And we had a few questions in before this session, so I've just got a handful for our speakers, and please put them into Q&A if anyone's listening and they want to ask anything. So one, and Pat, I mean, you talked about the sort of the values and virtues of the Tote model, and interesting to say that you think it is more sustainable for racing. But do you think the legislators will continue to take in the account that if they are going to legislate fixed odds, that they need to make the appropriate return to racing? Do you think that's on the agenda?
Yeah, it's really more of a conversation between the fixed odds facilitators and the representative groups of horsemen. So here in America, we have a very unique situation. It's very positive for racing that in order to enable cross-border betting, so between the states, what we call interstate wagering, there has to be an agreement between the operator and the representative horsemen's group that is there. So you can't just offer betting without getting a consent of a representation of the horse people. So they need to be able to sign off on this. And there's a lot of negotiating that's going on now, trying to determine how much of a percentage is going to be earned by the operators and by the horse people, how much is going into prize money, essentially, from fixed odds operators. So it is an area of discussion. It's federal law that basically supersedes the entire situation. It's very important that it gets worked out. It is in the process of being worked out in New Jersey. And I think everyone is kind of looking to see how are things going in New Jersey. So if we came back a year from now, I think you'd have a lot more states that would have an idea of where they're going to go and how it's going to evolve. But I think a lot of other states in America look to New Jersey to be the lead because they were the leader in enabling sports betting. So they're going to look at this and see if it's good. Don't forget, the case that has to be made here in America is agribusiness. The ecosystem of horse racing is very important for a lot of agricultural economies and land use and things of that nature. So racing gives a lot back. I'm here in Central Kentucky. So it's incredibly important. So what happens in the other states, maybe 40 states where there's racing here in America, it all affects one state most of all, and that's Kentucky. And so we're really staying on top of it.
And just staying with you, Pat, for just another question. Someone has asked, linked with that, will fixed odds betting take off in the US? And judging by your answer, it looks like everyone will be looking to New Jersey. But what if we were here in 5 years' time? What would be your best guesstimate as to what the landscape might look like? Simple question.
Yeah, the model that I think the US is looking to follow most of all is Australia. It's a tougher model for Americans to get their heads around because we don't have a lot of connection to the Australian racing scene, a far greater connection to the European racing scene, particularly England and Ireland, and to a smaller degree, France. But we're very aware of what goes on over there. Royal Ascot, for example, is a regular feature on national television here. I think it's going to be a slow road. I don't think we're going to see fixed odds dominate in any way, shape, or form in the next, say, 2 to 3 years, but it is a process. And as I think the Australians have seen over time, it took a little while, but fixed odds really did grow and evolve. And given it 10, 12 years, it has shown to be a significant return to the racing industry. So I think we'll see a smaller start, a slower start. But to be frank, the growth in sports betting, the spread of sports betting has been so much quicker than I think almost all the experts have anticipated, that it has really surprised a lot of people. So I think it would be, there's every reason to think maybe that it might be the same in horse racing. We'll see.
Brilliant. Thanks, Pat. We'll let you off for a couple of minutes. A question to Pertti about, and I suppose, comparison to the US versus Finland. You know, Pat's talked about the lack of innovation in the US, probably because of the lack of competition, but you have a monopoly in Finland, but you have been innovating. What's led to that, and why, in comparison to what else has gone on in the US? What's led to the innovations in Finland?
Thank you, Susanna. Of course, we had a competition in the few years ago when we have these three betting companies, Veikkaus, Reijan, and Fintoto, and of course this competition forced us to make these innovations. That one thing, but also, of course, I can somehow said it that Sweden has influenced a lot to Finland, because in our neighbor has very developed Pari Mutuel horse betting market, and in many cases we have followed Swedish ATG and they improvements and innovations. Of course, we have to make some kind of adjustments to our local market and modify, but we have had a great example very near, so it will help us also this innovation part. And then one issue is very important, that we introduced online gaming already in 1996. So we have been very early stage in online gaming, and that's one issue that we have developed so much in online markets, and of course, in my opinion, horse betting, the best place to bet is in online, because you have a lot of tools and a lot of data and live pictures. So that's one reason our innovation is online market, so early stage.
Brilliant, thank you for that. Lambert, coming back to you, and with your marketing experience, how do you think that we are going to best market pool betting to the younger generation? Because that's absolutely crucial. We know that we've already got established gamblers and punters who are older, but how are we going to get future generations to understand pool betting, do you think? Oh, on mute.
Are you asking me this question because I'm the youngest here?
Yeah, and you've also got a diploma in marketing, so I thought you'd be a good one to ask.
So the young generation is way more interested into fixed odd betting. I feel like if we want them to make more interested in Pari Mutuel betting, we have to speak the same language as they do, and to reach them through their preferred channels, like social medias, by using early adopters as key influencers, like the PMU did recently during the Euro Cup. They asked Antoine Griezmann, the football player, to participate on the ads, and so we have to use the same language they do. And of course, it goes without saying that it would be better to focus on the digital rather than on the physical betting shop or physical channels. I hope that answered the question.
It does, and I think those are probably ideas that we're all thinking about, and I know came up in previous webinars that WoTA has held. I'm not avoiding questions, so I've had one in from someone that says, do you think the UK tote betting will ever get 100% of the market here? And I think honest answer, no, and that's not what we're striving towards. I think we've got a very competitive market here for customers. The UK is a good place to be a race betting customer here. You get race customers have, at least if they're serious about betting, have 3 betting accounts. And I guess our ambition as the tote would be to make sure that one of those betting accounts is the tote. whether it's on their phone or whether they're coming to bet with us on a race course, or betting with the Tote, through their bookmaking shop, that they see us as a viable option and want to have a bet with us. And the ways we're doing that is through our innovations on pricing and those whirlpool opportunities. So we're just wanting to be a serious and relevant part of the bookmaking market, and certainly grow beyond 4%. But we'll always have, I think, a mixed and very competitive market here in the UK, as we should, which again comes back to themes we've discussed across today. Pat, coming back to you. Bruno asks, when we talk about modernising Pari Mutuel, do you refer to technology or the introduction of new products and bet types? What do you think is key if you're modernising from the US in terms of what customers want?
Yeah, there has been, if we think about where things have gone in the last 20 years in the current existing pari-mutuel space in North America, there's been essentially one bet type that has been introduced during that period of time that has really, in any way, shape, or form, taken off, and that is a version of a multi-race wager, a pick 5 that was introduced. So there were pick 3s and pick 6s, and pick 4s then came in, and we're missing the pick 5, so let's put the pick 5 out there. But that has been where the innovation has taken place, and an inversioning of existing products. But realistically, there's been very little new in terms of actual bet types, and the technology from many of the providers has been, I would say, behind the space of some others. I spent some time in Hong Kong, and I spent 3 years there, and I could tell you that the betting platform that is in use in Hong Kong is also very behind. It's just incredibly familiar, and so operators have to balance the technological upgrades along with the customer experience and what customers have come to expect for so long. But there's no doubting that the turnover in Hong Kong is substantial. It's the world's largest per capita race pools, but the technology is actually still quite far behind in terms of what the customer sees and what the customer experiences. I think that the biggest threat here is that fixed odds operators are able to offer a completely different type of bet in ways that pari-mutuel is not really able to offer customers, because you need liquidity, you need pool size, where takeout rates are historically at 15% or higher, and the fixed odds bookmakers are often likely able to undercut that a little bit. So it's tough to find a way to compete in that space, but maybe to find ways to think beyond this. I mean, I know that there are entities that have pursued bet sharing, and finding ways to split tickets amongst people. It happens to a small degree here in America, but to a larger degree in other places in the world. Whatever you do, you just have to keep modernizing and evolving, keep pushing in some direction. I don't know if one's necessarily better than another, but keep at it, because like we said, in 3 years, there's been twice as much money bet on sports, and distribution continues to be small, very varied across states, and that competition is only going to get stronger. So racing continues to face such big hurdles here to attract customers that any innovation, any modernization you do is going to be needed.